How can my wife be dead in less than 24 hours and I'm already expected to take a second wife? He said to the elders. In Obioma, Nwanyoma lived with the revered king, Obinna, and his beloved queen, Ngozi. Their reign was a golden age for the kingdom. It was marked by beautiful harvest, flourishing trade, and an atmosphere of harmony that can be seen and felt in every corner of the kingdom. Their daughter Nwanyoma was the jewel of the kingdom. Her laughter echoed through the kingdom like the sweetest melody. She was raised with love and care, and she grew into a woman of remarkable grace and wisdom. However, the joy that once filled the kingdom soon turned to sorrow when tragedy struck. Ngozi, the queen, fell ill, and her spirit was dimmed by this unseen illness that baffled even the most skilled Dibia Mkporogu. She had lumps that grew repeatedly on different parts of her body, and it made her body to boil and caused her so much pain. This made the king, Obinna, to be gloomy and their daughter Nwanyoma optimistic that the gods would not forsake them as she prayed to them. She repeatedly said to her father, "Nnam, jisike, take heart. The gods would never allow anything bad to happen to Nne." But despite her optimism and the efforts of the Dibia Mkporogu, the queen's condition worsened until her last breath. This left the kingdom in mourning and grief, and the royal family was destroyed in disgrace. At the wake of the queen's passing, the elders gathered at the palace and counseled King Obinna on the need to marry a new wife who will birth a prince to ensure the continuity of his land and the stability of the kingdom. This angered the king, and he rose in anger and said, "How can my wife be dead in less than 24 hours and I'm already expected to take a second wife?" He said to the elders. They replied, "Our king, it is our culture and a taboo for a king to stay a day without a wife, especially if he doesn't have an heir." The elders persisted, and out of frustration, Igwe Obinna decided to marry Queen Adure. After the Igbanku ceremony and the customs were performed, Queen Adure was unveiled to the people, and they confirmed her absolute beauty. But her beauty blinded the people and King Obinna from the darkness that lurked within her heart. Adure, who was already consumed by ambition to rule the kingdom of Obioma, tried to get pregnant for the king, who doesn't have any interest in sleeping with her or even fathering an heir with her, as he had made up his mind to leave the kingdom with his daughter Nwanyoma and her chosen husband. This even made Queen Adure more envious of Nwanyoma, whom she sees as an obstacle to her own aspiration for power. After several attempts to birth an heir, Queen Adure began to hatch a plan to get rid of Nwanyoma, as she saw her as an obstacle that is preventing the king to look at her lustfully or even want to birth an heir with her. She secretly paid 2 palace guards to secretly follow Nwanyoma to the stream, and on their way back, she instructed them to kill her and return to the king, and blamed the death of the princess on their neighboring village who are looking for a virgin girl for a human sacrifice to their mother deity Atam. The guards, out of fear of what Queen Adure would do to them and their family if they refuse her offer, decided to take the payment and help save the princess's life. On the Ekemaka day, which was the only day the princess goes to the stream to take her bath, she went to her father and said to him, "Nnam, today is Eke, and I will be going with my maidens to the stream to have my bath." Her father, elevated with her presence, praised her and her beauty, and told her not to stay long at the stream, and she should also stay close to her maidens at all times. With smiles on her face, Wanyoma smiled to her father and assured him that she would be at home as soon as possible, and she would even prepare his favorite food once she comes back from the stream. And she immediately left with the maidens who were carrying her beads and ude uli and otangele for her beautiful eye adornments. On her way to the stream, two hefty men wearing masquerades rushed out of the forest and chased the women, who all scattered in different directions. They made sounds that is popularly known to be used by the people of Atam and Atam's worshippers, and this drove fear in the minds of the women even more. As they ran in different positions, the men only chased after the princess, and in no time they got hold of her, dragging her into the thickest parts of the forest. Wanyoma was already struggling and begging the men to have mercy on her, and immediately the men knelt before her and begged her to forgive them. They said to her, "Our princess, we are sorry for causing this much pain on you, but the queen sent us to kill you. But we cannot afford to do this because your mother, the late queen, was humble and kind to us and our families. And this is why we want to save you instead of killing you as Queen Adure recommended. But you must leave the kingdom. If not, Queen Adure would plan again to get rid of you and also get rid of us." So they told Wanyoma to run as fast as her legs could carry her, and she should only return when she hears that calamity has befallen the queen. Wanyoma could not understand why Queen Adure wants her dead, but she was determined to run away. So as she ran, she told the palace guards to please protect and take care of her father, and she ran further into the forest. When the maidens ran into the palace, they announced to the king and told him that they suspect that the princess has been taken by the worshippers of Atam. Immediately King Obinna heard this. He fell back into his chair and held his heart. He summoned all the palace guards and warriors to immediately go in search of the princess, because he fears that if they leave the village boundary, the princess would never be rescued. As all this was happening, Queen Adure was pretentiously consoling the king, but deep down, her heart was filled with joy and the prospect of the beginning of the second phase of her plan. After a day's search, the warriors came back with a blood-stained cloth and the headless body of a young woman. Immediately they entered the palace, and without saying a word, King Obinna stood up and went inside his hut, never to be seen or heard from again. This became the beginning of dark times for the people of Obioma, as the queen took over the kingdom and began to rule as Igwe. In the absence of the king, The kingdom languished under Queen Adure's oppressive rule. Justice became a mockery, with the queen's cronies wielding their influence to serve their selfish interests at the expense of the common people. The queen took over crops and farmlands belonging to the villagers without due compensations. She forcefully killed and slept with people's husbands, even while she still stood as the queen and wife to King Obinna. Meanwhile, Wanyoma saw herself living in the thick forest alone, and this made her develop magical skills that can communicate with the forest spirits, who saw her as one of their own and taught her the secrets of nature. On this fateful day, Wanyoma encountered Obinna, a fugitive fleeing the queen's unjust persecutions. He was lying motionless with series of injuries on his head, ribs, and arms. Wanyoma moved close to him and felt his chest to notice if he still had life in him. She quickly went in search of the Morodi roots and used the liquid extract she got from the roots and poured it into his mouth. After a couple of days, Nnamdi regained consciousness and he asked where he was and who saved him. Wanyoma said, "Easy, you are badly wounded. Rest, we will talk when you have much strength." And she put him back to sleep. 3 days later, Nnamdi woke up, fully awake, and looked closely at Wanyoma. He immediately fell on his knees and shouted, "Oh, my princess, how were you alive? Why did you abandon us? We thought you were used as a sacrifice to our Tam." Wanyoma was not surprised, but she asked, "Who are you? What is your name and how did you get here?" Nnamdi replied, "My name is Nnamdi. I am the son of Atakatuwu, the farmer, and my princess, the queen Adure, ordered the death of all the members of my family because my father refused to give up the land he had inherited from his ancestors." On hearing this, Wanyoma became furious. She asked about her father with tears in her eyes. And Nnamdi rolled his head and said, "No one has heard from the king from the day he thought you were taken by the Atam worshippers." Immediately Wanyoma heard this, her heart sank in agony at the moment she learned about the state of her father and her kingdom, and she immediately resolved to confront the tyrant queen and to bring back peace to the kingdom. Wanyoma began to journey back home to Obioma, and as soon as she stood before the palace gates, Adure saw her and recoiled in horror at the sight of the princess. In a desperate attempt to maintain her grip on power, Queen Adure unleashed dark magic upon the princess, seeking to snuff out the light of her lineage once and for all. Unknown to Queen Adure, Wanyoma did not come alone. She was accompanied by natural spirits who wants to protect Wanyoma and to see her regain her birthright. They immediately repelled the malevolent chants, which was triggered by revealing Queen Adure's sorcery. In a fit of madness, the usurper queen was consumed by the very darkness that she had unleashed, and her reign of terror came to a dramatic end. With Adure's downfall, King Obinna was freed from the shackles of her influence. His eye opened to the truth that his daughter was still alive. He ran outside and immediately embraced Wanyoma with tears of joy and welcomed her home as the rightful heir to the throne. He decreed that in the absence of a male child, the kingdom must be passed on to the daughter, whose chosen husband would rule with her. This made the villagers excited, and with the destruction of the wicked queen, Adure, the kingdom was ushered into the new era of prosperity and unity. And so, the legacy of Queen Ngozi lived on through her daughter, whose courage and compassion had saved the kingdom from the brink of ruins.
Igwe Jenga.